Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, your Sagittarius September 2023 reading and forecast. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James, clairvoyant, and I've done a number of one-on-one clairvoyant readings for Sagittarians from different countries over FaceTime and Skype over the last month. And you know who you are. And if you might be interested to see what's involved in that, check out the information that's in the description box below. Now, in addition to the spiritual gift of clairvoyance, at birth I was also provided with the spiritual gift of healing. And my soul contract is that healing is to be provided by me without any benefit to me. That is, totally for the benefit of the person without me getting anything in return. So healing is free, no obligation, no strings attached, nothing. And if you or someone that you know may be interested in healing, just check out the information that's in the description as well. Now, as the subscribers know, and it's great to see the subscribers, thank you for having me in your home. I love to see you each month, truly I do. You know that we don't have any video advertisements breaking their way into this content, so you get to enjoy the experience of it uninterrupted by video ads, don't you? And you can let it seep in. And you also know we just have to take 5 cards because 5 is really all we need. We don't just spend 2 seconds on a card. We spend some time on each one because they usually have a lot. They're very talkative, aren't they? In your experience, they're very talkative. And if we had more than 5, we would run out of time. So let us see what there is involved. Now, I might also use my pen to point out some of the interesting imagery that I think is important in analyzing the energies that are swirling around, and the art helps interpret, I think. So let's get it underway, shall we, for you for this month. Here is the 7 of Cups. This is the 2 of Swords. Here is the 2 of Wands. This is the Devil. Good on you, Devil. And this is the 3 of Swords. Now, you don't normally see me do this, but I'm going to take what they call, well, I call a mood card. These were given to me. I don't normally go for this sort of things myself, but I found meditating on the images that different things did come up. So I just want to see what might be around for you as a result of this image in this month. So it is transform anger. Well, that's always a good thing anyway, I suppose. Anyway, let's see it in a second. Why don't you come and sit down here next to me? You and I can have a good close look at the imagery in this artwork together while I do the reading for you. Great, let's get you underway, shall we? And we have a look at this one here. This is one of those sort of card things that I said was here. And what's it saying? It says transform your anger. Well, I'll make this point about anger, and I don't think I want to spend a lot of time on this. Anger is a result of you not being in control. Now, anger is an emotion. It's a fire that can be used to fuel activity, to fuel your pursuit of objectives when it is harnessed. But when it just flies around, it just becomes like flame, which eventually just burns into the air and is lost. I think what transforming your anger is actually saying is to say, identify the cause of your anger and see what there is that you can do, that you can control or have an influence over the circumstances that give rise to an anger. Now, there are some things over which none of us have any control. And so what we need to do is to have the courage to accept that which we have no control over. There's no point at raging at the tides or at waves on a beach, none whatsoever. But rather, this is asking you, I think, to say, where can I find common ground? What is giving rise to it? Let me identify with precision. Let me step outside myself and identify with precision what's going on in events or interactions, and how do I adapt to those things. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have anger. I mean, we all get angry about things, I suppose, from time to time. Let's have a look anyway at, what's this first card? This is, well, interestingly called Debauch. Well, it is the Seven of Cups. Now, what is the thing is, well, I'm looking at the astrology here, and I'll talk about the astrology secondarily. Venus in Scorpio. Incidentally, I have an association of Venus with the number 7 as well, mystically. So there's a double Venus there. Just bear that in mind when I get to talk about the astrology. But here we have what looks like a desert, doesn't it? And the desert, though, is actually a dried out swamp, because from it come the cups of the suit of water. So there was once water there. And out in the distance here is a mirage, which is important, I think, in the context of Venus in Scorpio, as I see it anyway. Now, these cups, they give rise to will-o'-the-wisps. They are those circling things of dust that one often sees in deserts. And out here in the background, we have the pyramids that are old, slow and slowly decaying, and the ground itself appears to be cracked, doesn't it? Well, here we have a situation where there is Venus ruling, and what Venus is doing, well, it's a double dose of Venus. Well, Venus is the planet of love, relationship, beauty, and Scorpio, of course, is about intensity, in-depth transformation and exploration of the self and others. But there's a double dose of Venus coming here, and Venus comes charging right into Scorpio with no handbrake applied. And the thing is this, she's coming in unchecked, but Venus is in detriment in Scorpio astrologically, and so Venus is, normally she can express herself. She is the lesser benefic, the great benefic of the zodiac you would understand, of course, to be Sagittarius. Well, Venus is the second benefic, bringing good things, good luck. But she can't, because she's in detriment in Scorpio. Normally she's expansive, but here she just doesn't have the opportunity to expand in Scorpio. And so she can't express her sensitivity and her emotions properly. Instead, that sensitivity and emotion can get channeled into negative addictions and an intensity, which is the darker side of Scorpio. And it implies that you could indulge in excess reactive behavior that maybe is due to something that has affected you deeply and changed you, and itself brought up anger in a way, or changed you in a way that really sets up its own set of problematic issues and behaviors and ways of looking at yourself and of the world. Now, this is with Venus here, this double dose of Venus, and I'm looking at this mirage that's here as well. A mirage, of course, is something that appears to be there, but it's not. Well, I think that this energy here represents the working of Venus in the sphere of the mind, where her influence is by no means clear-sightedness. Actually, you believe what you want to believe when you're under the influence of Venus. What a moment ago was a source of lust and enjoyment maybe has now lost its attractiveness, and it seems to you like, oh, the flowers, their heads droop, or the flavor of food has become stale. The emotions might be out of balance. And it could be that there's an indication that some deep disappointment has still not been resolved. And I'm looking at this card, which is down here. Maybe you've tried to cover over old wounds or not looked at them in the way that you should do. And we might talk about that when we get to this card here. But this diversionary tactic, I don't think, has helped. And maybe what you do is you binge on things. You binge on food. Could that be possible? Or drink. God forbid. And after every binge, after every attempt at escape, The face of your own problem or source of sorrow rises all too clearly before your eyes and colours your experience of the situation so that you feel gloomier and gloomier. Well, it's time to open your eyes and take a look at perhaps a painful reality, because only by perceiving, by recognizing your own inner reality will you be freed. And every further attempt to avoid it increases the stagnation of your emotional energy. I do have to say that there is a possibility hanging around here where there are some negative thoughts that you might be self-medicating, is what I'm getting the idea of. Negative patterns of behavior may be rearing their head in relation to diet, alcohol, sex, or drugs. Maybe this is calling you to recognize that there's something that you've lost control over, just as when we are angry we have lost control over ourselves. You've lost control over circumstances, and that this is producing damaging lifestyle choices. Is there some disappointment you have not yet worked out? Have you experienced something that was perhaps just a little bit too good? Have you overworked yourself? Have you overdone things in any way? Look, we all have shadows within us. There's no problem with having shadows. We're all a mixture of light and dark. Say this to yourself, though. As I recognize and accept my shadows, they lose their power over me. Now, at the other side of that, I probably spent too much time on that, but on the other side of that diagonal, there's this card here, the Three of Swords, which is Saturn in Libra. Now, it's called sorrow, but I've got to tell you, it's a good thing because Saturn is exalted in Libra. I'll get to the astrology in a second. Let's look to see what this painting is here. This looks like to me what you've heard of the Oracle of Delphi in historical terms in the old days. The Oracle of Delphi was said to have leant over this big chasm that went into the bowels of the earth, out of which vapors rised, breathed in the vapors, and in a state of trance as a result of whatever it was that the oracle was breathing in, would make predictions and say what was going to happen to people. Now, only Saturn really looks down into the depths of the earth. And associated with that Oracle of Delphi was also, there's a big python here. That's an Ouroboros. That's it's eating its own tail. On top of here is a cracked jar, which is holding your heart. Now, these gear levers here to me say that, look, life always turns on. The machinery of living continues to happen. And that all of us, because life is always turning, do at time to time have sorrow that's associated with things. Now, there is, however, a bright side to sorrow, and that bright side is shown by, I think, this astrology, which here is said to be Saturn. Let me point that there, Saturn in Libra. Well, as I say, the good thing about the astrology, and although this is said to be sorrow, Saturn is exalted in Libra. Now, Libra has, well, we spoke of Venus before. Venus actually is the ruler of Libra, and she is the lesser benefic. You have the greater benefic being Jupiter. But she treats Saturn as an honored guest and with great courtesy and with great attention. And so Saturn is not running around crazy, but Saturn is doing what it's doing, which is to say, I'm guiding you along to make sure that you maintain your soul contract and your soul purpose. Sometimes we want to go off and do things that take us away from what we're here to do, and Saturn is that thing which brings you back. And sometimes that coming back causes sorrow, and sometimes our sole purpose or soul contract is to experience sorrow and to experience it. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Saturn is about limits, restrictions, time, form, formality, among those things that I just did mention. And so I think what this is saying is that there could well be some emotional pain that you're going through. There's no doubt about it. Doubts, a lack of clarity, perhaps a heaviness, a depression. Maybe there's a tension, because I'm looking at this number 3 here. Maybe there is a tension in a 3-sided relationship. Now, Saturn is a strict teacher, and it makes all impurities visible, and it blocks all comfortable avenues of escape. The lesson to be learned here is no less than the mastery of care and worry. A brooding, distrustful outlook must be recognized clearly as negative energy, which separates you from your origins. Now, as I say, this could also relate to a tension-loaded 3-sided relationship, and it's attempting in some way to explode or destroy it, and this situation, I think, will demand clear decisions from you, and any attempt to avoid making them will cause sorrow and worry. There may well be sorrow over past hurts, over past losses or past separations, thoughts of sorrow, or patterns that are coming about mentally for you. You know, sometimes when you are sorrowful, it's because you have certain thoughts which come around and around and around in your head. And this relates as much to this card as it does to here. And I'd ask you to just do 2 things with respect to those thoughts. And the first thing I do is, when you see one of those thoughts which causes you sorrow, ask this question of the thought. To what extent is this thought useful? And the second question to ask is, what is the behavior of this thought? Again, to what extent is this thought useful? And how is this thought behaving? And you will find that you get transformed from being in the position where you are being judged or judging yourself, or you are the victim of the thought, and you turn it around and you actually stand above the thoughts and you start to judge them, and you take control over them, and you'll find that they will be deprived of oxygen and will disappear into the air. But of course, sorrow is something which is normal, and sorrow and joy are completely interrelated. They are the same. They are the same coin. They are just different sides of it. You see, you can't experience joy unless you have experienced sorrow. The deeper that sorrow cuts into your being, the more room there is for joy to fill. I mean, isn't the wine glass that you use, wasn't that fired in the furnace of the glazier of the glass factory? And isn't the guitar that you listen to that soothes your spirit, isn't it cut down, cut from a tree that was then hewn and put together? So understand that you need sorrow in order to understand and have joy, because your joy is actually your sorrow unmasked. You have this when you sit down at as you sit down at your kitchen table with sorrow at night. Always remember that in the next room, joy is asleep on the couch and ready to wake up and come in and embrace you again. But you do get through that period of whatever it is that was making you a bit miserable, because you do get some peace from it, you see. Then not only do you get peace, but then you get direction, and then you take off like a rocket. So let's see what there is here and get through these quickly for you. The moon. Hell, here's Libra again, the moon in Libra. Well, this is interesting. Here are 2 swords balanced together. Here is black, here is white. I assume that's some sort of a sacred text. Now here is the moon completely balanced between that waxing side of the moon and this dark side of the moon in perfect balance. There are 2 pillars here, everything's happening between them. There's the scales of Libra, as you can see there. And on this side of it is a jar, on this side is a feather, a reference no doubt to the ancient Egyptian religion, which provided that after death, a person's heart, and the heart would have been contained in there, because they thought that the essence of the person was the heart of the person, you see. The goddess Mart would weigh the person's heart against the feather. Now, if they were in balance, the person would go on to the afterlife with Osiris. But if this weighed down the feather, then the person was said not to be eligible to live on. But rather than going to any place of torture or torment, the person just completely ceased to exist. No afterlife at all. But here we have the moon in Libra. Now, I think that this is a happy combination for you. Did you know that your moon sign describes your instinctive or emotional energies? Now, with the moon in the sign of Libra, you're liable to have a deep need for peace and harmony in your life. Now, Libra, of course, is symbolized here by these scales at the pointy ends of these two swords, which are in balance. Balance is the key. And this is saying that it's asking you to check out the areas of your life that require balance, and this includes your personal environment, your work, your relationship with others. You know, actually, I don't think that the purpose of this card is either good or bad. It's sort of neutral. It's about balance. Now, the great degree of inner peace is finally going to come upon you, but you will have the power to make decisions, and in particular, decisions regarding a relationship or situation which engender growth for you. And that's probably following on from this period that you've gone through here. Now, these two swords, a symbol of peace, are crossed, piercing the sky that's there. And there's a deep spiritual peace that's coming around, which is signified by this halo here, and combining the energies of reorganization, which are the green things on the end there. Inspiration and ideas which come now are worth paying attention to. Remember them in order to be able to orient yourself by them in times of doubt and confusion. Inner peace is a special gift. Protect it, but never try to cling to it. Now, what was going on with these previous cards here makes sense to me that this one should turn up, because it may well be that you were having a hard time making up your mind about something and were unable to make a choice. Now, I don't think actually that these things here really are all that dramatic. You might even just have been dealing with the pros and cons of a situation. I think maybe what's happened is that, maybe you didn't have the right information. You didn't have the right information to make the right decision. But you've got the information now. And when you get it, it's like the light goes on and you can see the situation for what it is, and you'll be in a much better position to deal with things, to work out what needs to be done to obtain your power and regain it, or adapt to the situation as it needs. Now, what areas of your life are especially important to you? Because I think that you can now come calmly to the necessary decisions. Take the time for deep relaxation. You're in a good position to examine your past, present, and future, and maybe write down your insights, but say this to yourself: a deep peace fills my precious heart. But then we get to this energy that's in the center here. So you really do start to get things moving along. You get the ideas. So you get this peace, you start to recuperate, you see, and then you start building up ideas, and then you just go straight forward. But let's look at this first, shall we? Now, this is said to be Mars in Aries. I'll get to that in just a second. Here we have a double-headed falcon, or crossed with like an eagle. The falcon was also an ancient Egyptian. It was a sign of Horus. Horus, of course, was the part of that trinity of the female Isis, the male Osiris, and their son was Horus. Now, above the bird thing here, there is an orb, and that's a sign of kingship here.
So too, like for ancient Egypt, was this flail and this crook. They were signs of ancient Egypt kings. And to add to the royal sort of powerful nature of this is this thing, which was a ceremonial war helmet in blue with little images of the sun emblazoned upon it. And here a cobra snake coming up there, which is quite phallic in nature, and deservedly so. Now, have a look at this. This is actually quite interesting, the way they've done this. Look at this symbol of Mars. You see how there's a circle there with this point at the end of it? Well, here's a circle here, at least half of it. Imagine it going around there still. And then at the end of it, you'd have this thing up here for Mars. Mars here, and Mars, of course, is the ruler of Aries. So you really do get control over yourself, and you start to have the planning process starting to go underway in your sign. This is a good sign and energy for you because it is Mars in Aries, where Mars then is in its own sign. So there is something now of a warlike energy around you. You will become something of a dynamic pioneer, and I think there's a domination around you, or mastering of a situation. Maybe you've taken this to heart, is what I think here. Now, the planet Mars, well, that brings dynamic, active powers, and it's in its own sign of Aries here. Now, Aries is the pioneer who constantly seeks new ways and methods of advancement. And this drive forward finds new directions here. Now, this is called dominion, but dominion rests on harmony and being centered. I think actually a better word might be, in your case for this month, might be command, in the sense of you having command of yourself as well. And this condition demands that your energies are collected and concentrated to provide the courage necessary to set off on new paths. Now, whatever drastic changes may occur along the way, the pioneer will not be thrown off balance. You will be safe and nothing is going to go wrong. Actually, I think you might be overcome by some boldness, courage, fierceness, and dare I say it, even shamelessness. You'll be generous and proud, but there could be a certain amount of revenge with you. Anyway, what we're seeing here is that your spirit is beginning to rebel against what the established order has been. And it's a time for you to act on instinct and what you believe to be right without overthinking things. Pay attention to yourself. Trust your energy. Don't go for any false compromises, and say to yourself, I find the strength I need now within myself, within my own center. But it's full steam ahead for you, because we come to this final card. And this final card is talking about astrology is Capricorn. Oh, that's an interesting Hebrew letter. I think that's A-in, the Hebrew letter there. Very quickly looking at the imagery here, which is quite straightforward. Here is the devil. Now, the devil's got the green man on the front here. There are the usual people that are caught by him. Here is this timepiece of Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn. And what comes here is it's like people are bound by DNA coming from the devil itself that's here, and it's holding this flaming wand. This letter of Ayin is interesting, I think, because it's a Hebrew letter that means I, and this Ayin energy has to do with vision and bringing forth lights that are hidden. And Ayin teaches you to see beyond and relates to time. Interestingly enough, that's here as well. It's the aspect of the visionary to see not just what is happening in front of you, but to envision what's going to be going ahead of you, like 5 or 10 years into the future. It implores you to open your eyes to see beyond the physical. Now, this Ayin is meant to take you from dark to light, and it urges you to break through the walls of limitations in order to see what not yet is visible to you. Well, Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, Capricorn, of course, is very feet on the ground, eye on the prize, and this is a great procreative energy for you. New vitality, humor, sensuality, and sexuality, creative energy, individuality. You might be doing some things on blind impulse, but you will be irresistibly strong and have a great sexual attraction to other people. Now, there may be some people who demonize you or who make you out to be the devil. You'll be very focused, I think, now, because he doesn't get distracted, and you will be possibly attracted to somebody else as well that I see here. A lot of sensuality around. Say this to yourself: I have everything going for me and I am the master of my life.
Well, I personally found that to be fascinating, didn't you? What a lot of great things happening for you this month, and don't you deserve it? Surely you do, that's for sure. And it's going to be probably until now next month before there's your card goes back over there, that mode card. It won't be until next month now that I see you unless you contact me privately. So, but I would ask you this: if you did enjoy the reading, then on the way out, please hit the like button, because it helps the YouTube computer do things with the videos. You understand how that works. Probably a lot better than I do, I should say. But until I see you again, remember one thing, and it is this: that you are a legend. And I look forward to seeing you again next month. And until then, it's bye for now.